everybody. Welcome back to our podcast, Between the Seams, episode 3. I'm your host, Michaela, and I'm here with a couple of awesome guests today. If any of you maybe don't know, March is Women's History Month, so it's only right that I brought on a couple of amazing women that are here to talk about everything women's sports and just life today. It was only right. So I'm here with Coach Sydney and Gabriela.
I'm Gabriela. I've been working at Big City for about 3 years now. I started off as a coach, but now I work in the youth programs here in the office. And I'm also a public school varsity volleyball coach.
Yeah, awesome.
Hello, I am Sydney Reddish. I have been playing with Big City for almost 2 years now and have been coaching with them for just over a year, doing adult classes and now a GYL coach. It's been a good experience. And I work for Downtown United Soccer Club here in Manhattan, and I do all of their marketing, communications, sponsorship, fundraising, all the fun stuff.
That's awesome. Well, it's so great to have you guys here. Thank you for coming onto the podcast today. Let's start out with just a little check-in. How are you guys feeling today? How you doing?
I feel good. I'm excited to have a conversation with other women in volleyball, but also about other sports in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great day today, so I'm ready for
It's a good day today. I feel like we should mention, especially for the viewers on our YouTube channel right now, you guys can probably see we're wearing a couple of sports jerseys today, highlighting some of our favorite teams. I felt like it was only right. I'm personally wearing a New York Liberty jersey because I'm a big WNBA fan, which is awesome. They play here in Brooklyn, and they had a great season last year. I mean, they made it all the way to the finals. Didn't win it, but they crushed it, and it was awesome to watch. So I got to go to some of those playoff games, which was a really cool experience for me. What are you wearing, Sydney?
I'm a big Premier League fan. I'm a massive Arsenal fan. I'm really proud to put on this jersey every time. So it's my Granit Xhaka jersey from a few seasons ago, and my team is having a good run right now. We're fighting hard for the chip, but we'll see.
Oh, where do you watch soccer?
Down on 14th Street, there's a bar called O'Hanlon's, which is a nice little plug for you guys. And yeah, we all kind of gather in the morning very, very early because with the time zones, Premier League games are at 7:30 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday, and you make some good friends that way. Like
A lot
early,
of diehards.
drinking beer, and just waiting for the game to start and chanting and having a good time.
That's so cool, though, that you have a place to do that with a community of soccer fans. For anybody that doesn't know, the Premier League plays in the UK.
Sorry, soccer, football. Football, yes, soccer. It's a soccer team. They play in England.
Yeah, so the time difference must be crazy. You never get to watch the games at a reasonable time.
Yeah, but it's dedication, and it was much harder when I lived in LA because of the time zones. I would wake up for a game at 4:30 a.m.
Oh yeah,
That was rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, dedication.
7:30 is a little step up.
Oh, it's a little better, You're just up with the sun. That's what we say.
The jersey I'm wearing is Michaela's, so she can probably talk about.
She's sporting a New York Giants jersey, which, yes, is mine. It's Eli Manning, who doesn't actively play on the Giants anymore, but obviously he's a legend for all of you New York natives. Everybody knows Eli Manning for the most part, so big Giants fan as well for me. Awesome. Anyway, great to have you guys here. I want to talk a little bit about our personal journeys as females in sport and growing up, any of your challenges and kind of how that was for you.
In growing up, I never thought that my career would have anything to do with sports. At least once I got past the idea of being a professional volleyball player, I never saw or imagined myself having anything to do with sports, let alone youth sports, to be honest. But I grew up playing volleyball thanks to my 2 older sisters who started at an early age, so I started at an even earlier age. And it was great, it's a team sport, it's a team dynamic. You get to travel a little bit if you're playing seriously with your club, and it was just something that for years was a massive part of my identity. It was, who am I? I'm a volleyball player, 100%, to the T, that's what it is. And at some point, I think I let go of that because I wasn't playing on a regular basis anymore. And it took me a little while to get back into it. But for the most part, sports has always been a part of my life. If it wasn't volleyball, it was softball or watching baseball with my dad. And then later on, really diving into Premier League soccer and just bonding with my dad over it, and finding little communities here and there everywhere that I went that I could have something to talk to somebody about, even if they were a total stranger. So sports has always been a huge part of my life. And until, I guess, maybe about last year when I started coaching for Big City, that I realized I'm playing volleyball, I'm coaching volleyball, I work for a soccer club, I go to the bar to cheer on a soccer club on the weekends. Like, it really is a massive part of my everyday life and who I am.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my God, yeah. So, sports in general have been also like a huge factor in my life. Like, I don't think, or I believe I started sports at the age of like 2. I started in gymnastics, and then I just randomly been to like so many different other sports. I think, so I've played tennis, gymnastics, flag football, basketball, soccer. So like, it's always been a factor in my life. I don't think like, if I didn't play a sport, I'm not sure what else I would have done. But like, even in sports, I've had my challenges of always like starting a new sport, not knowing what to do. But as being like an athlete, you can say, I was never really a beginner in a sport. So whenever a coach found me, they'd put me in a position that they needed the most, instead of like really capitalizing on what I could actually do. So like, for example, flag football. When I first started, I was a center, and if you don't know that position, it's the person who hikes the ball in the middle.
Okay.
And then like blocks or does like little button
Key
curls
role.
and stuff.
It's a key
It's
role.
a great key role, but when I started, it was something that my team didn't have. And then once my coach realized, wow, she can catch a ball, I became wide receiver. So it's like, it's interesting like that. Even with volleyball, I think volleyball was the last sport I picked up. I actually picked it up maybe like the summer going into high school year. So it was like pretty interesting, just because my middle school didn't have volleyball for women's.
Oh.
Yeah, instead of maybe my 8th grade, and I didn't even know what volleyball was then. So it was a slow starting for me, but when I started volleyball, I was placed as a setter because my team didn't have a setter.
Yeah.
And then when they realized like I can hit and I can pass more, they started putting me outside in DS. So it's been a challenge in sports where like, you know, people will just put you in a position that they need you, maybe based on height or the way you look. But then if you really like show what you're capable of, like it's really rewarding in things that you do. And then I kind of love that sports is always ever changing. You can't always just not stay in one spot. You can always do more in everything that you kind of like put your mind to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like sometimes, especially at the youth level, and like, did you go to a public school?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, like I feel like it's very applicable in like youth public school settings that people are moved around in terms of positions in just like terms of necessity. Like we don't have anyone, and you have some general athletic ability. Let's throw her there, you know,
Yeah,
or like
yeah.
you're tall. That was the same for me. Like I played basketball in middle school and high school, and I was the tallest girl on my team. I'm 5'7", so
Forward, center.
power forward down by the net. You know, elbowing the girls that are like 6'1", because as the tallest girl on my team, I always got matched up with the tallest girl on their team. So some of them were 6-footers, 5'10" and up, I would say was the right range for that position, which I really shouldn't have been. I should have been like a shooting guard or something like that, but out of necessity, I was placed down low, down in the basket, like fighting off those big bodies, you
I was
know?
also placed down there for
Yeah,
a year
yeah.
at 5'5", so because I could jump for rebounds. So.
Exactly, yes.
It's so crazy though how some of that translates into life. Like my job, you have to be flexible and just, you know, going from schools or moving all things like that. It's okay, here's the environment you're in right now. What do you have to do to succeed and either be a team player or make it on your own? And, you know, sports does that for you at an early age without necessarily realizing that's what's happening.
Yeah, 100%. Like, that's especially like something we're gonna get into a little bit later on in the podcast, like just how transferable all the skills that young females go through learning in sports growing up, and how much of it really applies to our day-to-day lives and moving forward as an adult. So yeah, that's awesome. For me, like growing up, exactly what you guys said, like sports was always on my mind for me. Like I grew up a tomboy through and through. I don't know if there's like a better term for that now, but you know, that's what we used to call it.
That's what I know.
Yeah.
If there is, I don't know.
I would love for there to be a little bit better term for that, but I don't know of one. So if anyone knows of one, please let me know. But I was a hardcore tomboy, grew up running around with the boys. There were certain periods of like my youth where I didn't really even have that many female friends, because where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing was in sports, and like that was so dominated by the boys always. At least that was my experience. And so I grew up just kind of running around playing any sport that I could pick up with kids my age. And then once I got into like organized school sports in middle school and high school, I loved it. I played basketball, I played soccer for a brief stint, and ran track and field. And then in college, I played ultimate frisbee, which is a little bit different, but it was a blast. It was awesome. And I also studied sport management or sports business in college. And I went to SUNY Cortland, which is a state, state of New York, Cortland State. I got to shout out my Red Dragons. Very near and dear to my heart, and they're also having an amazing year, like athletic-wise. So many of their teams are going to SUNYAC championships and NCAA tournaments and such, and that's just amazing to see. But so I studied sports business there, and although it was, I believe, the biggest major on campus at the time, it's got to be top 3. It probably is the biggest, I would think. And that school is known for that. But even though we had such a large population of the campus that was in that program, it was so heavily dominated by males. I remember, like, it was a common experience for me being in college classes and being one of 2, maybe 3 girls in the room.
Only one in a classroom.
Yeah.
Not the only one. The only one of the few women in a classroom. Do you think, I mean, I can't relate necessarily as much to the whole college situation and experiences because mine was very short. And I definitely did not have a focus on sports management at the time. I had no focus, which is why it was so short. But yeah, I mean, leaving that environment, or was that just your freshman year? Did it get a little bit better?
No, it did get a little bit better. Like I started to meet more of the women in my major, and a brand new thing that they started was like there was a club for the major, but then they started like an offshoot of that club that was specifically for women in sport management. Ooh. And it took a little while to take off, but I mean, I'm sure it's doing even better now since I left, and I hope it is, and I hope that there's more women in the major, and like sports in general in the past couple of years, the past 5 years especially, has just grown exponentially. Women's sports coverage, women's sports participation, and everything to do with that, especially women working in the industry. It's so exciting, especially for me to see. Like, I'm so happy to see those things because those are things that, you know, I grew up and didn't necessarily have.
You know, like I said, I didn't necessarily grow up thinking that this was where I was gonna land. I'm really happy that my path has led me here, but as I've gotten older, and like you mentioned, over the past couple of years, as there's been a larger spotlight on women's sports for a lot of different reasons, good, bad, and ugly, There is a lot of progress that's happening because of some of the ugly things that have been brought to life, especially in women's soccer with, bad coaches and managers that are doing some not so good things. But it's not growing up knowing, again, that this is where my career was going to take me. There are problems in the industry that I wasn't thinking about that I was going to have to be prepared to combat. And now that I'm here, I've been very fortunate that I haven't had too many issues of misogyny, if you will. But there are things that happen where you don't realize it when it's happening. Sometimes you don't realize what's happening until you're out of the environment and the situation, and you realize, that wasn't great, and now I know what this person was talking about when they were fighting for equal pay or equal rights or whatever it might have been. I think the U.S. women's national team has really been kind of the driving force behind equal pay for women in the game, and they've had many lawsuits that have been pretty successful, which is excellent, but there's still such a larger conversation around that, and my experiences have happened outside of the classroom, which you mentioned that was kind of your first, or maybe not your first, but that was an initial realization for you to look around the classroom and say, hey, there's a lot of boys in here.
Yeah.
Just like growing up, there's a lot of boys in here, but the sports I was playing growing up was mostly volleyball, so it was definitely female dominated. Quit basketball at an early age, very proud to say that. And it just wasn't my sport.
That's fair. That's fair.
It was not my sport.
It's good to know what sports are for you and what sports
Oh,
are not.
yeah. They wanted you to catch the ball, and my reflexes were to hit it or set it, and that's, that's literally what it was.
Set it into the basket.
No, not for me. But yeah, it's just nice to kind of be in an environment and talk about it now and realize that you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I went all over the place with that, but.
No, I agree. I totally agree. And I feel like to just be a woman or a female in any kind of environment surrounding sport, you just have to be so resilient. I think it's kind of something that in some ways is forced to be ingrained in us at a certain level. If we've come this far, we've had to have a certain level of resilience to get here, whether you kind of acknowledge that or not in a conscious way. But that was huge for me. That's the only way that I got through, growing up and playing with the boys and the boys telling me this isn't for girls and anything to that effect that you've heard over the course of your life. And you have to be resilient in coming out of that and succeeding for yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing I just realized, right now, that every sport I played, I was coached by a male. I don't think I've ever had a female coach.
Really?
Yeah, teach me these female sports or the techniques that we need in a female sport environment.
That's so disappointing.
And but now I realize I'm a coach myself.
Right.
I'm kind of glad I'm in this situation that I am.
Yeah.
I can teach women how their bodies move because I am a woman,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's so much more than just being an athlete. Being a support system, especially as a youth coach, right, for young girls that are coming in with who knows what kind of issues they dealt with during the day, just kind of acknowledging it and being like, oh, she's having a rougher day than she usually does. Let's, be aware of it and conscientious of it. But yeah, coaching the youth, it is nice to have females involved.
Yeah, I would say that one thing that you said was huge, being a support system. It's coaching youth especially is so much more than just teaching the sport. It's teaching, social, personal skills, confidence, empowerment, creating a sense of belonging and community for, whatever space you're in, whatever team you're on. And the camaraderie that comes out of it, I think, is something so special about women's sports.
It's such an outlet too, right? Sports growing up for me, it was something that I looked forward to at the end of the day. and wanted to get back out there and play. That's where my friends were for the most part. And it was just something that I was confident in doing and knowing like, okay, I get to be physically active, but I get to be competitive, and we're out here on the court working together as a team. It was an outlet. It was a way to escape. I was able to step onto the court and my mind would shut off with everything else that was happening in my life. And like, you know, not to get too deep, but I had some pretty interesting things happen to me as a child, and I was able to, you know, get out and set the net up. Just setting the net up was like, okay, time for volleyball. Everything else is gonna just melt away right now, and it still does that for me to this day. Like last week I played and I hadn't been sleeping well, and I was like, how am I gonna get through this volleyball game? I'm irritated, I'm not happy, I'm tired, and you know, the referee blows his whistle and it's like, okay, hitting lines. I'm like, yep, let's go. Game time.
Everything else
let's go.
is gone.
Yeah.
It's time to play. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
as a team.
another great point that you brought up, which I forgot to even mention, is the health benefits. You know, like mental health and physical health. Mm-hmm. Playing sports just makes you feel better. You know, getting out, getting active, it does wonders for, you know, your lifestyle outside of sports too.
Yeah. So this past weekend on Sunday, when it was like really, really nice outside, I ended up setting a grass volleyball net at the park for like 2 hours, and it like made my entire day. I lost every game I played. I played like 4 sets, and I lost every game. But like I had the best time just being out there like with everybody else that like decided that today's the day to like play. And it's just like, when you think of a perfect day, people will think of like other things, but for me, it's just like a day out on the court, just playing with like friends in the nice sun and the heat, and
Yeah, that's awesome.
What park were you at?
Queensbridge Park?
Okay, because it's so funny you say that. I was at Central Park that day, and for 2 hours sat and watched. I didn't even play. I just watched the volleyball players. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Like, it's just, you know, when I'm sitting there like, oh, tip is coming, and you can read their body language, like, oh, nice dig, like all these things. And it's like, yeah, this is my sport. This is my thing. This brings me happiness. This is like, bring me back to my roots, you know, because I have 2 older sisters, and for many, many years before I was able to play competitively, I was sitting and watching their volleyball games for years, and tournaments on the weekends, and Penn State, and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know volleyball. I would sit here with my parents or just by myself and watch and cheer on my sisters, my best friends.
Yeah, that's awesome that you had like those role models growing up and those figures that you could look up to playing sports, because, you know, not everybody may have that. And, you know, what's awesome about that, especially you guys can speak more on this fact, is now you coach youth, and you guys kind of get that opportunity to be that person for somebody else. Can you talk about like how that feels?
Yeah, honestly, it was the main reason why I wanted to start coaching. Like, I love volleyball, but I know that I'm not necessarily the best player, but I know that I could be a really good coach. So when I started coaching last year for Big City, especially with the girls, the youth, I went into all of it knowing that I had really positive experiences with my coaches growing up, and on different occasions they were there for me to support me through the hard times during the game, and I just wanted to be able to give back and do that for kids. I mean, like I said, being maybe not the best player on the court, I still knew what my role was on the team. You know, I was subbed in to serve varsity senior year when I was playing varsity in high school. I subbed in to serve for a girl every single time she went up to serve, and that was my role that season. But you know what? I wanted to make sure that I did it as best as I could, and at the end of the season when we won our state championships, I can confidently say to this day, like, I was an active participant on that team. I didn't just sit on the benches. I did my job. I supported the girls. I was supported by my coach, and I want to be able to do that for girls now. You know, I see them struggling with their serve, or I see that they don't necessarily have the confidence to know where they are in their rotation yet, right? And I don't want anybody stepping out on the court feeling shy or nervous or like they're going to mess up, right? It's super important for me to make them feel confident, or at least reassure them that people mess up. You're going to shank a ball, whatever, you might get hit in the face, you're going to miss a serve, but that doesn't mean that the weight of the game is falling on you. And I can say that at the club that I coach, nope, I don't coach there. Sorry, at Downtown United Soccer Club where I work, we have a very large staff of women coaches. Right now, they only coach women's teams, and we have had a larger conversation within our organization to say, hey, like, we have men coaching women's teams and we have women coaching girls teams, but we don't have any women coaching the boys teams, and that's something that we can rectify. Like, all of our coaches go and get their licenses and have all these certifications and accreditations so that they can do this, and why not? Like, why not take that next step? So it's nice to be involved in that organization, knowing like, hey, we're moving forward. We see it, we recognize it, and it's something that we want to implement within hopefully the near future. But yeah, being a coach, when I started coaching with Big City, I went to those coaches at the other job and said, okay, how do you talk to the kids? Like, how do I get them motivated? How do I get them to not be mean to me? And I got really good advice, because those women over there are ferocious human beings that have dealt with a lot, know what they're talking about, have been coaching for years, and in one way or another, this was probably always the path that they were on. So I think they were a little bit more prepared for it, which is why I was really eager to go to them and felt like the advice they're going to give me, don't take it with a grain of salt. Like, this is legit.
So my experience starting off as a coach was kind of different. I had a lot of friends who were coaches, and they thought that I'd be like a great fit to start coaching. And when I did start, I was like pretty nervous, actually. Like, the same questions you were bringing up, like, how do I make these kids like me? And like, am I doing it right? Like, those were always the questions that were on my mind. But then when I jumped into like the volleyball coaching scene, I like started noticing like bad habits that the kids had. And I'm like, no, like, I need to fix this.
Yeah.
Like, it was always that like urge to be like, I want you to do it the right way. Right. That like, I think made me be the coach that I am today. It like, that just drive to like help others in the sport that like I love, really, I wanted that to translate to the kids. So like, I taught them the way that I wish I kind of was taught. Some of the skills that when I was growing up like was confusing to me, so they can understand it better. And then like being a GYL coach for 3 seasons, just throughout my Big City career, like it was kind of awesome, like watching them grow. Even like I had one successful season where I was like Queensboro champs, and then the next season I think we lost all of our games. But like I was still proud. But I was still proud of the girls, because we were able to steal sets from every team that we played.
Nice.
It was never like a 3-0 wipeout. It was always like we were fighting to get that second set to win that game. So like I love watching my players grow, even though like they start off so shy. I noticed that a lot of girls will come into the sport like being not so confident in themselves, but like just have a little interest in it and want to learn more, but then don't know how to like say, hey, I want to learn more. So I believe when like coaching girls, you have to, that's why I love being a female in the sport. Like I know what they're kind of going through. I went through the same thing. Yeah. So when I like coach, I want to make sure that they feel like supported in the community that they have, and that they can look up to me as a female in the sport, being short but like knowing everything, or like how to teach the sport. Like I'm glad that these girls that I've coached will still reach out to me sometimes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and
That's
be
so
like,
nice.
Yeah, and then they'll talk to me about their career in their school, or like what they want to do outside of it, and it's just like really nice to give them more motivational tips, and then that they feel comfortable coming to me to talk about it. So
See, that's amazing. Like, you have such a greater influence than you even maybe think as a coach of youth athletes, especially. And I do think like that is a shared experience that you brought up with, especially I would say some of our girls youth league players, because I know that I went out and I spoke to some of our girls youth league players at the end of the winter season when I was doing interviews, which was great. But I got the sense, and some of the responses that I got to certain questions were a little bit eye-opening to me, especially in terms of the tryout process. and how, nervous they were, how stressful of a process it was for some of these girls, which, I maybe didn't realize. And as I was asking these questions and doing these interviews and talking to girls in the league, I was really understanding, it's very stressful to put yourself out there. It is so scary to join a team, meet a whole bunch of new girls, especially girls that are brand new to the program and maybe even new to Big City. It's a scary thing,
Well, you went through that process when you tried out for a team.
Yeah,
I was there when you were looking for a team.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it was so stressful. That is a great point, Sydney. I completely forgot about that and maybe possibly blocked parts of it out. But
here I am bringing it up again.
No, that's good because you're exactly right, and I spaced on that, but it's so true. I never really played volleyball growing up. I'm new to volleyball. Since working at Big City, I decided to get more involved. I wanted to start playing in some of our leagues, but I couldn't do that not knowing how to play volleyball. So I started on the classes. I went to join the women's league, and I showed up to the open scrimmage, which is a great event. There's so many people there, so many different levels, lots of different backgrounds, and we ran through the drills and started breaking off into small scrimmage teams, and it was super intimidating. I can't even lie. It was very nerve-wracking. Specifically for me, I think my biggest struggle was that I didn't feel confident as a volleyball player. I think that I'm somebody that's pretty outgoing and can handle myself in social situations, but really felt, restricted by the fact that I wasn't maybe a good volleyball player. It was definitely intimidating, that process. And so exactly right, Sydney, I can relate to some of our girls' youth league players and this experience that they're having as well. I have a statistic that I want to share with you guys from the Women's Sports Foundation. 30% of parents believe that playing sports is very important for their daughter, compared to 41% of parents that believe the same to be true for their sons. So what do you guys think about that? Because I feel like a lot of some youth involvement in sports does stem from, our parents maybe putting us into lessons, putting us into classes at a young age. Like, Gabriela, you started gymnastics when you were 2. Well, I don't think that was your choice.
Right. I am going to need to see a photo of you.
My parents were very smart about that. So I am also a twin. So when there's 2 little rascals running around with a lot of energy, where do you put them? Gymnastics, to get coordinated with their body and just get that energy. My mom and dad both did bowling and handball. My mom was a serving specialist on a volleyball team one year.
Interesting.
My dad did baseball, and he loves baseball now, so I watch baseball with him a lot. But they grew up with sports themselves, so I felt like they just believed it was easy for us to kind of get into it, and they were right.
There's so many variables that come into play. You asked specifically about the parents' role, and I think that matters. Okay, how much money is the family making? Are you on a pay-to-play club? Where do you live? I lived in a suburban area where I could walk to the gym, to the school where I was going to have practice, versus being in a city or, if schools are 10 miles down the road, whatever it might be. And then, are the parents willing to pick you up? Are they not? Are they, for girls, I know I see it in the gym with my youth volleyball teams or the classes. It's a social setting as well. So if other friends drop out, are you going to be more likely to stay in the game or not? I decided to take up softball. My dad taught me how to throw the ball, how to catch it. We would go to Yankee games together.
Aww.
I love baseball because of the bond that I have with my dad, and he was the one that introduced me to Premier League also. So it's in the family, but my parents, we were very much musical sports.
Okay.
Yeah.
So baseball is something I wish I could get into. I'm so sports driven, and I'm such a big fan, such a viewer. But baseball, I really struggle with.
To play it?
No, not to play it. To watch it.
Well,
It is.
People say this all the time.
It's such a long game.
Well,
and it's so boring.
But like, have you ever been
No,
to
no.
a baseball game in life?
Yeah, no,
Real life?
in life.
In
yes.
real life?
Yeah, in life, it's fun. Like, I enjoy the experience because when you're there at the stadium, it's different. You know, I can get into it. There's a whole experience and environment surrounding that. But the people, and no shade at all. I fully support the MLB and you know, baseball and softball. But the people that will sit at home and watch like a 3.5 hour baseball game on their TV astound me.
I'm sorry, that's how I feel about American football.
That's fair. I've heard
Like,
a lot of
I
people
sat
say
there,
that.
I sat there and I watched the entire Super Bowl, and I'm like, I can't even see the ball.
So-
And why do they take 5 minutes before running, 10 feet down the field? I'm like, what is this? And then I'm sorry, but the fact that there's like 8 referees on the field, and one of them has a microphone, and like it's his job to be like, I'm offsides, I'm doing whatever, flag. I don't get it.
Well,
I don't get it.
so,
first of all,
it's like
the
4
field-
hours of your life.
The field is massive, so that's part of why they have so many referees. You need different angles.
Do you-
There's 11
yeah.
players on each team.
Do you
I
not-
digress.
do you-
I used to referee.
I was
football.
literally absent from gym class the day they went over flag football and the rules
do you
of football.
guys not enjoy watching the sports because you don't necessarily understand how to
Maybe.
like play or like
So
what the sport is?
for me, when I talk about baseball,
yeah.
I actually no, I know baseball. For
love
me,
baseball.
it's not the issue of not knowing how the game works. I actually used to be a media intern for a baseball company. I learned a lot about baseball during that time in my life. But no, for me, it's. I think baseball.
You're not watching it in a
baseball
fun way.
You're
You're not. I'll make baseball fun
Make
to
it
watch,
fun
okay?
for me, please.
So like, think of baseball almost like in volleyball terms. So the pitcher is the server. The pitcher is the server, okay?
The pitcher's the
Do you know what a knuckleball in baseball is?
Yes.
It's a float serve.
Hey, there it is.
A curveball
Is
in
a jump-
baseball is a
jump
top spin.
yeah.
So think of it as like
You know
you're
what?
watching volleyball, and that hitter needs to get a good serve receive.
You're so
Okay.
right. I have that's
Serve receive
amazing.
slash attack.
That's like the best analogy I've ever heard.
And now you have to play off of that.
And now I have to play baseball.
But not even. You just have to kind of make it fun for yourself.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. I agree. I actually want to bring up since you talked about the Super Bowl. You mentioned that you're not really a football fan, but for anyone that is a football fan, and I'm sure you guys have heard about it too, Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift and her influence on the NFL this season.
I'm here for it.
She's
heard it's fake.
making
I am-
so much money for the league.
More than
and
that.
more viewership of young girls.
Yes.
Like, after the Super Bowl
Yes, exactly.
and after the playoffs, I saw on social media like videos of like 4-year-old girls like dancing in front of the TV
Watching
and
with
watching
their-
it with their
right,
dads.
exactly.
I love the crossover between like celebrities, like music artists, and sports. I love that. I think it's awesome to highlight influential people that are taking part in that experience and in sports. And Taylor Swift is a huge part of that. I know like a lot of people, I think the majority of people were quite annoyed about it, which I was sort of disappointed to see because
maybe because I don't watch the NFL regularly.
NFL, yeah.
NFL regularly, I wasn't annoyed because I don't think it took anything away from the game.
It goes back to the conversation we were having before about having role models and having people to look up to. Like, yeah, maybe she's not an athlete, but these girls see Taylor Swift and they idolize her and they're like, wow, she's a sports fan. Like, I can watch football. Football's not just for guys, you know?
Right, women in sports, it's not just women in the workplace, right? You know, you could be an executive, you could be a player, you could be a fan. Like, that's what women in sports is, to me at least, because it took me a while to actually be here, but sports has been a part of my life, you know, for so long. And okay, Taylor is a woman in sports in the sense that she's a fan.
Yeah.
And she's doing what she does, you know, whether she's directly influencing people or not, which she is. If you don't like it, don't look at it, but let her do her thing.
How full circle is it for Taylor Swift to be dating like a football player?
It's just so Americana. Like, come
If
on.
anyone remembers like her early stuff from like the early 2010s, she
Dating the
has
guy on the football team.
the guy on the football-
Literally,
it's
yeah.
like one of her biggest songs.
Yeah.
And what I think the line is, I'm
15.
not a Swiftie, don't come for me, but I'm pretty sure the line, yeah, it's 15. And the line is something like realizing there's so much more than just dating the
In
guy
the
on
end,
the
you'll
football
do
team.
things bigger than dating the guy on the football team. Yeah.
There you go. And now here she
Here
is.
she is.
No.
Granted, that song was about her friend, but
Oh, okay. There's a little insider
like
info.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. But like, here she is, and who cares? She's dated actors. You know what? It doesn't matter. Like,
Exactly. No, I love that you just stopped yourself there
really,
because
like-
you kind of like pulled yourself back from the trap. The trap that we all know when especially when we're talking about women's athletes is they focus on things that have nothing to do with their performance. Like, it just going back to stereotypes and also like the over-sexualization of female athletes as compared to their male counterparts. Like, I was reading some article that was talking about the difference in there was like editorial shoots for male athletes versus female athletes, and you know, a lot of the female athletes features were all like sexualized, or like they put them in poses that had nothing to do with their sport.
you mean like Sports Illustrated?
Exactly, like huge publications and the media in general. Like there's just such a disparity between how female and male athletes get treated in the media.
And when they do get highlighted for being athletes and they are put in editorials or different magazines, they still get scrutinized for what their bodies look like.
Yeah.
Serena Williams has had 2 children, and her body is, look at everything that her body has done, like that she's done with her body. Countless tournaments and championships and titles. She's an Olympian, like literally. And then they put her, you know, on the cover of a magazine and everybody complains because that's not the kind of body they want to see. Bitch, she is performing and outperforming everybody else in this world. Same thing with Simone Biles. Like, I have seen photos from, they're old at this point, but like some of the gymnasts in their bikinis on the beach. And there's comments that are like, this is what you guys find appealing? You think these bodies are sexy? And somebody claps back and is like, hey, loser, these are some of the best athletes in the world. They don't make their bodies for you.
she could crush you.
Literally. Like, so it's so, you know,
And it's like
Wait,
you
can't
lay
win.
abs on a girl, like
Ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
just, it's stupid
And it's-
little things.
it's
Have you
like-
heard all the controversy and conversation around Simone Biles' husband?
no.
Because no, you haven't.
Like they don't know.
Okay,
who he is.
so let me shed a light on the subject.
He's a football player, right?
Yes, yeah, he's a football player. But see, like, I couldn't even tell you his name. I don't know his name, right?
Simone Biles' husband.
Simone Biles'
That's
husband
his name.
is
Or like they
how
can't
he,
recognize his picture.
how,
Like,
how
they
I
don't know who
refer
he
to
is.
him. But basically what happened is Simone Biles is a legend. Like,
The GOAT.
how many time Olympian, gold medalist, etc., amazing, influential figure.
Stood up for herself and her mental health when it mattered.
Absolutely.
She's
and
the
she
GOAT.
is married to an NFL player. He plays on the Houston Texans. Do I remember his name? No. But what happened was he went on a podcast and he basically talked about, like, he was focused on himself and, you know, his career, which is great. But I think the commentator, the host asked him about Simone, and he basically, you know, he was trying to, like, you know, just act all like cool dude, like too cool, like, oh yeah, like, and then there's Simone, but like, look at all the stuff that I do, I'm an NFL player. And it basically whether he meant it that way or not, I'm not here to comment on that, but basically everyone on the internet took it as like, who is this guy? Basically degrading everything that Simone Biles has achieved.
But
to
it's
basically
also
talk
your
about
wife.
himself. It's your wife.
It's your wife.
He
It's your
was
wife.
literally like, I didn't know who she was before we went on a date.
Oh, please.
And she picked me up and I'm like, are you stupid?
Physically?
Yeah.
Like, are you stupid? She is the greatest female athlete of all time.
Yeah. Thank you, Klinger from behind the camera, by the way.
I'm so
I
sorry.
love that you jumped in there.
Oh my
because-
God, because
Yeah, and I mean, this just shows why everybody on the internet was pissed about it too. Because it's just another example of us, like, not, like, highlighting women's sports the way that they should be. Just because her husband is in the NFL, which is the highest level of football. We understand that. But Simone Biles is an international sensation. So she should have a space for that as well, is all, that was the conversation around that. But it definitely turned some heads. It definitely sparked a lot of conversation, a lot of outrage, and then there were jokes.
That show goes to show you what the community of women actually looks like, that we'll have each other's backs. We should have each other's backs. We should go to bat for each other as well. So when you see men or other people try and degrade some of the achievements that women are, achieving, it's really sad. And I just think it speaks more volumes to those people and the things they're not achieving than really the successes that we're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, and that's why it's so important to have a community, a space to talk about things and to lift each other up. It's so important. I feel like there's also a lot of tendency for girls to kind of put each other down, which is also really disappointing to see. I personally don't understand it. And like, in terms of sportsmanship, it's huge. It can change everything. Like, if you come off a bad point, you shake the ball, and somebody taps you on the back and is like, hey, no worries. Like,
Right.
We got the next one. Like, that is life-changing.
It goes
like,
forward.
game-changing, quite literally, because you can feel like the lowest of the low. And then as soon as, like, one of your girls has your back, it's everything.
And that's what being a
Like
team is.
the little high five you get.
The little
from
high
it.
five,
Yeah.
yeah. And I found that it was kind of difficult to teach that,
Yeah.
to be honest. I don't know if that was something that was instilled in us at just early on, or if somebody taught us the proper way to be a good sport. But I saw it on my youth team last year. I'm like, how come you're not high-fiving each other after every point? How come you're rolling your eyes if somebody misses a serve or does something like, hey, we're teammates, you got to correct that because you're making somebody else feel bad. And guess what? They're probably not going to perform at their best because of that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sports is also, it's such a good way to meet people, to meet friends. I've met a really close friend of mine just by walking to the Arsenal bar and realizing we were the only two women there without a man by our side, and we had jerseys on. And like, you're a fan? I'm a fan.
There you
because
go.
we're actual fans.
Yeah.
Not because somebody else dragged us into it, yeah, so I try to encourage my girls to realize that you're making bonds and memories for life, and you have to be a good team player, you have to be a teammate, because that's the only way you're going to find your successes is together.
Yeah. No, it's awesome seeing it online too, because I feel like there's so many communities and like accounts on social media, platforms for people to get into those kind of communities as well. Like, I follow, and actually I have a mug here from one of my favorite companies. So if you're on the YouTube channel, you can see this mug and how cute it is. But if you're on Spotify, sadly, you're missing out. It says, support your local women in sports, and it's from a company called Sports Girls Club, which is awesome. They hold an annual conference every year for women that work in sports, which is awesome, and they have an Instagram page, which is so funny. Like, they post...
They do the Barbie stuff, right?
They do Barbie stuff. They do all kinds of pop culture references translated into sports, which, like, is just so for the girls. Like, I love it. And there's another, like, there's just women's sports, there's Highlight Her, there's so many.
On her turf.
Yes, that's a good one. The company Together, the one,
Yes.
that's a great company. Just, they do all kinds of media coverage, news, they have merch. That company was created by a team of, like, a conglomerate of
Olympians.
amazing female athletes, Alex Morgan, Chloe Kim, Sue Bird, more on the list there. But I love that company. It's just so awesome, like, seeing like the space created in recent years for women's interest in sports, like with Girls Club, how they tailor those posts to like common girly things, you know, like pop culture stuff or movies and shows going on. And like, I think there's this other account that like, I can't remember the name of it now, but I saw it recently and their bio on Instagram was "Not Your Boyfriend's Sports News." And I love that. I love that. I thought it was so funny. Just kind of being able to relate it to another group and having women be in that area and like have a place for that.
We're in the conversation. Sometimes we're running the show, literally.
Sometimes we're running the show. You never know how many women are behind the camera or behind the screen or, you know, in major sports, which is also awesome to see and should be highlighted more. There's also so much going on just in women's sports in general. Like the growth that we saw over 2023 and the start of this year, like it's just been spiraling out of control. It's on the rise.
We've got pro volleyball now.
It's amazing, yes, pro volleyball.
Pro volleyball, we're getting a women's hockey league.
PWHL is in full swing. I want to go to a game so bad, but I haven't yet been able to. I'm going to, though. The interesting thing about the PWHL is like they were showcased during the All-Star weekend of the NHL. So it's awesome like to see how the NHL and also the same thing kind of happened with the WNBA and the NBA. Like the men's leagues will take on spotlighting and showcasing the women's leagues for, you know, awareness, coverage of the event, which I think is awesome. Love to see it. And then you get to see those players interacting. It's just a whole community of hockey players or of football players, etc. So the PWHL is awesome. There's also flag football is growing immensely for women and young female athletes, which is awesome to see.
I'm pretty sure this is the same sport. I have an old intern of mine who is playing in the Olympics for flag football.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I saw that on her Instagram the other day. She's like, buy my jersey. And I'm like, what? That's so cool. That's so badass.
Obviously, the National Women's Soccer League is amazing too. There's Gotham in New York City. They won the championship last year. Amazing, powerful ladies there.
Yeah. But I have something to say about the women's league, the volleyball one, because I'm a huge volleyball nerd. Like, it's insane.
Go ahead, Klinger.
They are the first professional volleyball league in the U.S. for women's and men's. And one of them was created by a male football player. He's one of the board members. And he gave a statement saying that he thought that there was space for more women's professional sports in the U.S. and that he wanted to use his money from playing in the NFL to support women's sports, which I thought it was incredible. I actually don't remember his name, but there's two of them now. And Jamal's girlfriend, who works with us, plays in one of them.
Absolutely.
She's incredible. Shout out to Lindsay.
She plays in San Diego, right?
She plays in San Diego, the Mojo team.
The Mojo.
It's incredible. Ugh.
That's amazing.
Just like imagine, like, you know, this was the sport that I played growing up, but the only professional level that I was able to see was either going to the AVP tournament, and I was not a beach volleyball player, or the Olympics. But being able to watch professional games on TV would totally change everything. You know, everybody says you have to see the representation in order to think that you can achieve it yourself. So it's so exciting.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I mean, at the pro level, which is awesome because it's like, why haven't there been more pro women's leagues? And then there's also like at the NCAA level, women's basketball is taking off. The like ticket prices are higher than the men's NCAA March Madness tournament, and attendance rates are going through the roof. I mean, a lot of it can be attributed to Caitlin Clark, who is amazing.
But still attribute it.
Yeah,
Because there's money there, and we need to have more conversations. I hate that we have to convince people that there's money in women's sports. Like, people are showing up and watching. Arsenal women just sold out 60,000 seats at Emirates Stadium in London. Like, it's happening. People are showing up. They're interested in it.
Yeah, no.
Let's put it on TV and broadcast the shit out of it.
More women's sports.
Yeah.
it's obvious at this point, you know? I mean, to the point of representation for young female athletes and just any females. And then also, you're right, from a business standpoint, like, we get it because we work in sports. They're like, sports is a business. Teams, organizations all only exist because they're, you know, turning profits. And you're 100% right. Like, the business of women's sports has so much potential. It's only going to grow. It's only going to increase from here. Yeah, it makes me so happy to see, and I'm sure you guys can agree. Like, it's just amazing, which is part of why we need to highlight it more and talk more about this topic and just have these conversations with our people, our youth athletes, the people that you guys coach. And yeah, like, I'm so glad to have had you guys here on the podcast. Do you have any final thoughts, anything you want to leave the people with?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this. It was really exciting. It's a good day to be a woman in sports. I definitely believe that. And final thoughts, I don't know, just really thank you to the people that encouraged me growing up. My sisters were a big influence for me. My parents helped, and everybody in their journey, because I'm happiest at my job right now because I feel like I'm able to give back and hopefully, you know, encourage a younger generation to reach their dreams in sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, also thank you for having me on the podcast. And then what I can say really is, if you're hesitant to do anything as a woman, just like take that leap. Like, what's there in harm to just take that extra step, or to even push yourself on the back to just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of young athletes struggle with confidence, but when you do it, I promise you, it just gets easier from there.
It is scary, you know. There's that famous quote, though, that about putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. Like, nothing changes if nothing changes.
Right.
You know, how can you expect to grow? How can you expect to, you know, meet new people and do new things and progress without putting yourself out there? Yeah. And it only takes one person to say, like, hey, that was really cool. Like, to have your back and just to give you, like, one little word of encouragement it makes all the difference. So not only putting yourself out there, but be that person for other people.
Yeah.
It's huge. So yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. You can listen to us on our Spotify channel, Between the Seams, and you can also check us out for our video portion on our YouTube channel at Big City Volleyball TV. So thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more episodes.